Hey everybody, today we have another one of these Dell Latitude 3510s. You might remember we had one of these on another video where there was a spill on it, but this is the same model laptop from another customer. The issue that we're having with this laptop is there are no signs of life at all. Now the customer says to me that they think that there's an issue with the power jack because they've changed the adapter. Why they think that, I'm not sure. But they seem pretty confident. I'm not even sure if they're covering for something else, that there might have been a spill or something. But we're going to take the back off this and just have a look and see if we can find out why it's not powering on. With the back off, this is what the 3510 looks like. You might recognize it from a previous video. There's no spill on this board, but as I said already, it's just not powering on. There's no battery charge, no light or nothing. Customer seems to think it's the DC jack, but we will see for sure. So the DC jack, you can see, is right up here. So the wires from that jack connect underneath the hinge here and onto the motherboard. Now if we zoom in on that, we can see that that DC power connector actually has 8 pins on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now in the other example videos we did with the Toshibas, they generally have, a smaller number of pins, and it's easy to see what those pins are for. A number of Toshibas have simply 2 wires, which are red and black for positive and negative obviously, and some of them have 4 wires, 2 reds and 2 blacks. But this one, we don't really know what any of these pins are for. So I'm going to check out and see if we have a schematic so that I can then try and measure to see if the 19 volts is making it onto the board. I've already checked the adapter. The adapter is good. We have the adapter plugged into our DC jack, and we want to see if the 19 volts is making it onto these pins right here. So let me see if I can find the schematic and find out which of these pins are for the DC input. I was fortunate enough to find a schematic that gave me the information I was looking for. I found the page on it which showed details of the DC input jack and the connector on the motherboard, and this is it. So we have pins 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Pin 1 is going off somewhere else. I'm not fully sure what that is for. 2, 3 and 4 are going to ground. 5 is not connected by the look of it here, and 6, 7 and 8 are positive input. You can see plus DC in. So what we need to do is we need to get our multimeter in DC volts and measure the voltage between pins 6, 7 and 8 and 2, 3 and 4. And that's what we're going to do next. Back to our motherboard, we get our multimeter and put it in volts DC and introduce our red probe and place it to either pin 6, 7 or 8. These are all joined together. So I'll place it on the center pin just for safety. And I get my black probe and I can place this to either 2, 3 or 4, so I just place it to pin number 3 right here. And when I measured on that, I found that there was 0 volts. So it was clear to me then that the 19 volts wasn't making it from the power adapter to the motherboard. Now because the adapter, I knew the adapter was working, there was 19 volts on that, and the DC input jack looked pretty good, so I thought maybe it was the scenario that when you plug in the DC power adapter, sometimes if the motherboard is shorted, it can go to 0 as a safety. It just shuts down as protection. So I thought that may have been happening. So what I did was, when I measured 0 volts here, I immediately plugged out the adapter and measured the voltage on it again, and sure enough there was 19 volts on it. So I was confident at that point that even though the jack looked physically intact, that there actually was an issue with the jack. So I had a spare one of these laptops in the office, so I decided that the next best thing to do was just to swap out the DC power jack and see if that was the cause of the issue. So having replaced our DC power jack, we plug in our adapter again and check for voltages. So I'll place my red probe once again to pins either 6, 7 or 8 as we discovered from our schematic, and place my black probe to either 2, 3 or 4. Once again, we're measuring for volts DC here. So once I placed these probes here after replacing the power jack, I discovered that there was 19.4 volts at this point. So it was in fact, like the customer had said, an issue with the DC power jack. So this is quite an easy one here, but the one thing I want to point out on this is for people who are starting off with repair, this is actually a very useful point of the circuit to test for voltage at, because right at this point, if you're getting the 19 volts or whatever the voltage is, it's usually 19 volts at this point. If you're getting the 19 volts at this point, you've immediately eliminated there being an issue with the DC power jack and the power adapter itself. And that's how I take the measurement for it. This again, like I said, was a little bit more difficult than the Toshiba ones because there are more pins on it. But if you look up the schematic, you can find out what the pins correspond to and take the appropriate measurements. That's a short one for today. It's obviously just an easy power jack replacement. I have another one that I'm working on, hopefully going to upload tomorrow. But that's all I got for today. Please like and subscribe, and let me know if you have any comments. Just post them down below. Thank you.